It's July 27th, 2022. I was having a conversation with Lewis earlier this morning. We walked up to the French workshop and I sat there while he had breakfast and then we walked back. Um, I was explaining to him, again, I have more training, I believe, than he does in this topic, but I was explaining to him how odd it was that yesterday at this St. Francis Catholic Health, I go into one room called an infusion room, and that set of circumstances took out of this arm, out of my left arm, 2 vials of blood and did the iron infusion, and then gave me a blue bandage. 2 vials. Again, I went from 8.6 to a 9 on like an 11.6 scale after needing 2 units of and a blood transfusion. So 2 vials, whatever. I don't know why they need 2, but here we are. Because the vials are like this big. Just seems like a lot of volume, especially for somebody who's in a state of whatever, or an altered state, in an anemia category, which has been now chronic, but gotten an acute, severe, extreme phase. So that's that. I'm like, so that wasn't so odd, because that seems to be like the ISO, like the industry standard operation over here. I was like, but what really struck me as odd, Lewis, is I then go across the hall to see the actual hematologist, like the actual blood specialist. I was like, and I'm waiting to see her. This black woman walks in, all in black scrubs, and she says she needs to take blood. And I was like, no. I was like, they already took blood over at the infusion center. And she's like, yeah, well, she needs to check a couple of more things. And I'm like what? She's like, oh, like the electrolytes and the vitamins, or like the whatever. And I'm like, yeah. I was like, really? So I'm thinking she's going to draw 1 vial of blood. She winds up taking 5 vials out. 1 she's holding in her hand, 4 she put by my leg. And then she just starts draining blood out. And then she reaches behind her in the midst and grabs 1 more vial. So that's 6 vials about this big of blood on an anemia patient that's already had blood transfusions because the blood volume is so dangerously low at this point, along with other like hypochromia type of a thing, where the color of the red blood cells is so pale because I'm not holding the iron, which is why I need the iron infusion. So she takes an additional 6. After she takes the 6 vials, I'm exhausted again. I am just wiped out. And now the doctor's not in my white doctor is not in the room. I don't even know if my white doctor ordered it, but this black woman in black, whatever, scrubs comes into the room and just drains 6 vials of my blood and then disappears. Whose medical license is on the line? I'm just curious. Because then the doctor actually comes in, we talk, she does the exam. She then says she went back to the window to ask for the blood smear so she could go look at it under the microscope. She has these pictures, whatever this means. I have no idea. I have no idea what that means. Then I'm looking over here at numbers, which again, the top portion, I know what those mean. And then I'm down to the white blood cell section. Neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes, eosinophils, basophils. I don't know what an IG is or an RBC, but that's the extent of my training. So I'm reading through that. And then I get down to the bottom section where the WBC IP message, there isn't one, but she circles this one in importance of the, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Is that anisocytosis, microcytosis, hypochromia, and fragments with a question mark? This frightens me about parasites. But what I don't understand is I was just in the hospital where they were drawing blood. They gave me blood. They drew blood. They did infusions. They released me. But now to be in an office with a doctor that I'm waiting to see and a nursing staff or a PA, whatever she was, I don't know, came in, and on this arm where she took my right arm, where she took the 6 vials of blood, she then put a red bandage on it, just so we're clear between 2 being with the blue and then 6 going to the red for some reason. Now, there is no community property permission. I don't know who this woman was. I don't know why she was in the office pretending that she worked for Dr. Trotta. I don't know who hired her. I don't know who she works for. I don't know if she has some outside lab, whatever. I don't know where my blood goes when she walks out of the room carrying 6 vials of it. And what's even more disgusting is in this health emergency and crisis that nobody seems to give a shit about, I, as a patient, have lost my voice to say, no, I don't want you even touching me. Go get me somebody who looks NEG. Because you are in a POS category that is so dangerously, like, your proteins definitely will never match my own. For certain. I don't understand why they even let you in the office with me. Seriously, I'm in a health crisis. This isn't like sitting next to somebody in a study hall. This is like actual tissue and organ and bodily fluids. I don't want you anywhere near me. But I don't even get that simple human right in this disgusting state of New York for I don't know what reason. All my rights have been taken away, and I have no idea by whom and why. And why they've been given to something that could hurt me on several different lengths, as well as withholding care, because this looks like parasite. I also said to Lewis, what I also don't understand is I went through the trouble of leaving the nursing staff in the hospital before I left a specimen. When I left, they looked up the code that they needed for parasites to send to the laboratory. For whatever reason, they told me to leave, which I did. And then when I get to Dr. Trotta's office, it says in her machine that there was one tested and it had no blood in the stool. And I said, that's not the test I'm looking for. I'm looking for the parasite test. And she said, there's nothing in here. There was nothing in the doctor's system for a parasite check. I have high platelets. I have fragmentation. There's the hemoglobin, this iron, and the whatever that the parasites crave has been stripped from my red blood cells, which makes my lips really incredibly white and makes me incredibly weak. It makes me feel like I have no, I'm on. And then I even lowered my food intake to a powdered water with nutrients in it. So this way I have energy reserves so I can do circulation exercises to keep the blood flowing and keep my heart in some kind of stronger state. In like thinking of how the physiology and the anatomy are working together. But it is just like, if I didn't have the level of knowledge and I wasn't able to put some of the pieces together and then document it, I mean, I don't understand how the health system got this infected with things that have no business, or should have no business, being in where blood tissue in somebody's health is concerned. I do not want to go to a foreign doctor. I do not want them in my healthcare system. I don't want them sharing my results. I don't want them reviewing. I would like my American foster family that disappeared out of the landscape and local area. That's what I would like. So then I look up this morning, and or actually last night, there was a piece on former President Trump and some LIV golf tournament. And I'm like, now what the heck is the 54 up to? And why is he upsetting everybody now? I was like, that's interesting. I mean, because you're not really living, but at the moment it's just a 54 in Roman numerals anyway. So I'm like, speaking fourth dimension on a level playing field. I'm like in this flat ion. So now I'm watching that. He's upset all sorts of people with whatever, and his robber baron methodology of doing, I don't know what, world peacekeeping methods, I suppose. At least that's what I think his defense would be. And then I go on this morning, and there's Ryan and Kelly in like, how do a brother and sister act with one another. I mean, again, that's they're not brother and sister, I don't think, but like, they're how I would assume brother and sister act together. So I'm watching them, and then they're talking about ghosting people, but they're talking about it in a dating mentality. And I'm like, well, that's interesting, because it's like, I feel like I've been ghosted by, like, I really feel it's abandonment and neglect in the field, but again, ghosted by like healthcare professionals and like fixing my actual problem. And then there's been the drop-ins, which is what I call them. Like, I walk into the day, I'm not expecting them. They know how important they are. I have no clue who they are. And then just having a surreal, real interaction with where I've been just left in like the work. I mean, like, this is just horrible. Between 1976 and a 1975 problem, just in case the 54 wants to know what's like surreal real and supernatural. Yep. It's terrible. None of it is as it should be. But robber barons being what they are, I was Robin Hood day school. There's one uber important, for me anyway, who knows the difference between 1983 day school and the rest of the whatever. And then being ghosted by like everyone you've ever interacted with, because that's what it's pretty much been. I mean, like, even my kids don't really use the phone. They don't really know how to like involve me in their whatever they're up to. I mean, these aren't actions I took. This is the disgusting, somewhere between robber barons and like the normal and ordinary.
Have you ever been ghosted, Ryan? Have you ever been ghosted?
You know, it really hurt.
And they're talking about somebody's trying to propose a bill making it like a mental torture or some kind of like mental abuse, because that's really what I feel the entire system has produced at this point from my everyday nothing.
hurt to be ghosted.
Yes.
And it begs the question: do you want to know ever why you were ghosted? If you could find, if the genie came and said, "I'll give you a wish. You can find out why you were ghosted for your own peace of mind," would you want to know? The answer for me is no, because that would torture me more.
I don't care. I take it as a blessing.
That
If
people
I
don't
get
respond?
ghosted, I'm like, good, get out of the graveyard.
But listen, for single people dating, they
Oh.
go out, they think they have a fantastic first date, the best first date they've ever had, and they're giddy about it. And then said person on the other side doesn't ask you out again, doesn't say I had a great time too, just ghosts you and disappears. It causes a lot of head games.
I have no idea. The last time I was on a date was in the early 90s. And so I literally have
Did
no
you have
idea.
brick phones then? Could you call each other the brick phones?
No, I got my first cell phone as a married person. Mark gave it to me as a present. He's like, this way I can talk to you on the phone. And I was like, you know, and I was still very suspect. I was like, what about the antenna?
What are they
You know.
saying about the ghosting though?
They're saying it has psychological consequences.
I mean, yeah, it does, because you're like, what did I do wrong? Did I say something? Did they not like it? I mean, all the things that single people do.
Probably all those things.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you. You asked me the question. Have I been? Obviously, yes.
You really haven't?
Of course.
Ghosted?
Over the course of my life, yeah. I've been out and things have not happened and no response. It's okay.
So like,
I figured they-
explain to me how it
figured they
works.
didn't get it.
You
The message.
take a young lady out, you wine and dine her. I know how you do it. So you wine and dine her. And then what happens? She moves in the middle of the night?
So it could happen in different stages. So you might say, had a great time.
Interestingly enough, some of us with security concerns that we've been living with since we were a child, but didn't really ever know that, like, you kind of sort of feel like you're at a surprise party everywhere you go. Like, everybody knows something, but they don't really talk about it. Kind of like every time I walk in the room, it's like, that's how I feel. But, like, nobody talks about it. Never really sure why. And, like, life just goes nowhere. And it's just really, I mean, like, it's really a stupid existence. Like, there's no purpose in any of this other than to just keep breathing, which is at sometimes even that's really painful.
Look forward to seeing you again. And they might respond once. And then you'll ask them out again and they don't respond at all. That's ghosting. They just disappear. Andrea, hallelujah. I heard a hallelujah. Amen. It's true, right?
Well, she's one of the foremost ghosts on the
Do you?
She's
Do
ghosted.
they call you Casper?
She is Casper.
And here's the other thing. I had a conversation with Lynn and Lou the other day. I'm like, so my mom says something about how, like, she intimated like I was a really bad teenager. And I'm like, now we have a problem. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, that time we got called in Oyster Bay where they found you and we had to come pick you up because you were drinking. And I'll go, here's the thing, Lynn. I stayed after school. I have no recollection of what happened. And I don't think I was drinking. I wouldn't know who I would be drinking with or what I was drinking. I was like, but I wound up on a lawn and it happened once. I was like, and then I didn't stay after school. Because, like, in Cold Spring Harbor, I was safe. I went out with Jackie Lyberg after school, and it was safe. I go to Oyster Bay, and I don't know what the hell's happening in the area, but I wind up on somebody's lawn with no recollection of what happened and in harm's way. And then whoever called told my parents I was drinking. I guess, like, the truth. They didn't want to tell my parents. Like again, are they just that, like, is that like their initial reaction was I was drinking? Because I had at a later adult event where I went out and then I got hit with a needle and then I went down. So I'm just curious. Like, again, it's a pattern on Long Island with the disgusting that lives around here. So I'm like, I really don't buy the whole I was a bad teenager, Lynn, because I heard some of Tia Frio's stories, and I am pretty sure they're not even comparable. And here's the robber baron news.
11 victims are protesting the Live Golf Tournament at the Trump Country Club in Bedminster over its ties to the Saudi government. Several of golf's biggest names have joined the tournament, like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, and Sergio Garcia. But families of the September 11 victims say it's a PR stunt by the Saudi government and that the athletes are accepting Saudi Arabia's blood money.
We are infuriated, hurt, and feel as if we have been let down once again, with professional golfers partnering with the very country responsible for our pain and suffering.
In a statement, former President Trump says, quote, I think LIV has been a great thing for Saudi Arabia, for the image of Saudi Arabia. I think it's going to be an incredible investment from that standpoint, and that's more valuable than lots of other things because you can't buy that, even with billions of dollars. Meanwhile, Mr. Trump returned to Washington today for the first time since leaving office. He addressed supporters at the America First Agenda Summit. Amazon now says the worker who died at a warehouse in...
Now, for some reason, it just has this feel, because they put up that the NFL now has this, like, streaming NFL thing, and I'm just like... I mean, between the US Open, the golf thingamajig, then the NFL, and then you got the NBA, and you got the MLS, and it's just like all of these robber barons, I mean, that have taken money, time, resources, contributed to society and political, like to grow all sorts of new problems, because I really don't see anything working. I mean, where are the NEGs? Because, like, I don't even want to comment on the POS anymore. They're just such a disaster. I really want to get to just NEG territory and just get healthy and, like, move on and actually, like, enjoy a portion of pretending that life is worth something. I mean, it's really disgusting. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. And it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.